everybody. This is a great crowd. I see faces I know and faces I don't know. So since there's so many faces I don't know, I will give my name. Jay hates it. I never say my name. I'm Catherine Bramble. My husband, Jamie, does the music thing. We are so glad that you are here. Welcome on Easter to a place that says all people are welcome. Every kind of bird. Aww.
Apparently,
Okay.
except for peeps.
Except peep birds. They don't count.
You're wearing one.
Well, we're going to get into that in a minute, okay? Okay, just wait, Jamie. Stealing my thunder. I know, it's okay. So we have lots of things happening in this community that you are welcome to be a part of. Weekly and monthly activities between education and just downright having fun. If I go through all of them on this Easter, we'll be here for too long. So I will tell you, if you want to sign up for our newsletter, there's a little form out there. You can write down your email and we'll send you all of the information. And we are not going to harass you. It's literally just to give you information so you know how you can plug in if you choose. So I promise, okay? Right, Israel? Okay, I've said it. So if you want all that information, but I do want to talk about one of ours in particular, what has been called the MAT Ministry in the past. We have a group of ladies that meet every other Tuesday. They take Walmart sacks and bags, Target, all those plastic bags that get thrown into landfills. They slice them up and weave them into mats for the unhoused. And they are really neat because they can be washed down, they're portable, they roll up, and they're really a neat thing that they're creating. Well, we've had several women that come and say, I love to do this, but I have other things that I can do, other crafting, other amazing things between sewing and quilting and all things I can't do. So I don't even know the names of them. And so they met and they are now going to be doing every kind of craft in honor of every kind of bird, every kind of craft. They're working, right? Woo! Yeah. Every kind of craft that they can create and do and make things to give back to the community. So they are expanding. I love it. So there's more to come. They're working on a name. Their slogan is every kind of craft, but they don't have a name. If you have cute suggestions, they would love it. So anyway, I thought it was worth mentioning. They are not meeting this Tuesday, but next Tuesday is their on time. They meet here at 6 o'clock. They've changed a little bit, so I feel fair not knowing that, okay? All right, thank you. I am excited that on the 1st, so there's some things I need to do today. The 1st is when Becky, our friend from the Bail Project, is going to be coming to speak. The Bail Project helps people who have been put into prison while waiting trial dates or jail, and they have no way to bail out, and jobs can be lost, kids can be taken, homes can be removed. So it is a way to help those in nonviolent crimes have a way to get back into the community while waiting on a trial date. They do so much more than that. It's about helping them through the process. And she works for this organization. She is coming to speak, and she's an amazing soul. I've met with her a few times, and she's going to come talk to us because we don't want to just say we're helping an organization. We want to know what it is, and we want to be educated about it. So today, I have this little situation here. There are cards in here. There are pens. And I would like you to write down questions that you might have. Sometimes we don't know if we want to believe or follow something because we have questions. And so this is your time to ask those questions, and she will happily answer them along with talking about what she would like to say. So this will pass around during church today, and you can write down your questions. Just stick them in here. You don't need a name or anything. Actually, you do need your name on here for the other part. So please put your name. We'll explain that later. But the question I will leave anonymous. Does that sound okay? Your question is anonymous. The other part, I need your name. So excited about that. Finally, for Easter today, Adam did get me my peep. He actually wore it and I just took it from him. But you guys know, if you're new, you don't know that peeps are disgusting. But they're the cutest decoration. I appreciate their decorative qualities, but they taste terrible. It's a divided house in here. So today, with your question, bailout question on one side, and on the other side, I would like you to answer a few questions. And we're going to see who knows their peep knowledge. Who's ever closest might get a prize. Okay? There's 3 questions. I've even written them down so you won't forget. It's right in here. Question 1, and do not look on your phones. I know that we are not cheaters in here, right? Okay. I'm not looking at anybody. Question number 1, when were peeps invented? Shh, don't say, I just said you can't search. No? I know the cheater now. Question 2, what is the most popular color that is bought? Shh, don't look it up. And the final question, what percentage of human beings actually like Peeps? Way too many, thanks. So the questions are written here, so if you forget, on one side is your very serious bail project question, and on the other is ridiculous Peep answers. And then you'll just drop it back in here. If you put your name so I know you won, I would really appreciate it. I'm not telling. Okay. Everybody good? I'm pretty excited about this. Happy Easter. Let's worship.
I know it. He is risen. All right. Excellent. Some of y'all people grew up in church. Got some church people here. He is risen. Some of you non-church people are starting to figure it out. He is risen. All right. You know, I've got 2 sermons today. This is the first one. It's going to be really quick. I hope. I really believe that Jesus resurrected. Like, I don't believe that that's a story. I don't believe that it's just a religious myth that we have created so that we can form some kind of religious cult and worship around. I really believe in resurrection. I really do. I don't know if I believe in a lot. Okay, can I say that? I don't know if I believe in a lot, but I really believe that he is risen. I believe that creates something in the world, an energy, a kind of movement that is transformative of all things, of all creation is transformative. And I really believe in resurrection. If I don't believe in that, then I really think that we're just playing around with philosophical ideas and just, moral and ethical questions. And I think it goes deeper than that. I really do. I think that something happened 2,000 years ago, that there's a resurrection that has happened, and it brings with it this energy of transformation for the entire creation. Are you with me? So I I think that the church gets a lot of things wrong, but I think that and I think they get Easter wrong too. I think we get resurrection wrong a lot and why we think it's important. But I believe that resurrection is real, and I believe that it gives us and the world and the creation, it gives this kind of electric life and energy to why we're here and what's going on and what it means. Amen. So that's my first sermon. All right. You sat through that one. Let's get through this one. All right. Today I'm calling this, what am I calling this? You don't? Oh, okay. Creative. I'm actually calling it resurrection. Let's see if I can remember this. The final word. Kinda. That's the title. That literally was the title. Resurrection, the final word. Kinda. All right. So let's read through our lectionary reading that's in the Gospel of Luke, I believe, today. And let's read through this together, and then we'll talk about it. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they came to the tomb. Taking the spices that they had prepared, they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. And the women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. And these angelic beings said to them, why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners, be crucified, and on the third day rise again. And then they remembered those words. And returning from the tomb, they, which were women, told all this to the other 11 and to all the rest of the disciples and followers. We always think that there were 12 disciples. That's just not true. There's a whole bunch. So among those that went to the tomb was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and the other women with them who told all of this to the other apostles. But these words seemed to these men an idle tale. Well, we've kind of always screwed it up. But all right, let's move on. Let's move on. And they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Stooping in, he looked in and he saw the linen clothes by themselves with no body. And then he went home amazed at what had happened. All right, so that's our resurrection story for this year out of the Gospel of Luke. Now, several things that I want to talk about and try to get us to focus on today. One of the things that happens, this is where I think we get it wrong. In the Americanized, Westernized, typically Europeanized, whitenized church, we typically think of salvation as individual. We tend to think of salvation as that Jesus came and he died for me. Now, that's not true. All right, Jesus did die for you, but we have forced into the resurrection story a very individualized understanding of the way of Jesus and the move of Jesus and the work of Jesus and the ministry of Jesus. And therefore, we have individualized what has become known as Christianity. We are in the West have typically believed that because we've been told that if you were the only person in the world, Jesus still would have died for you. Jesus went to the cross with your name in his mind. Jesus took all of the beating and all that for you, and so that you could be saved, so that you could be forgiven, so that you could go to heaven someday when you die. If you believe the right way and believe that Jesus actually did that and really believe it and really believe it the right ways and really believe it and really believe it in your heart, you got to really believe it. Probably you need to come to our church to make sure that you believe it the right way. Are you with me a little bit? So we have co-opted in the West this beautiful story of creation, redemption, and salvation, and made it a rugged individualism that sounds very much like America and not so much like the kingdom of Jesus. Are you with me? So it's interesting how we've done this. And I think there's lots of reasons why we've done this, and I'm not going to get into it, but we've done it. We've done it. And so Christianity becomes a very individualistic sport. We are not playing on a team anymore. We don't have really an understanding of community and the sacred we. We are doing our own thing. And so therefore, whatever I feel like that God is put on my heart, then I'll just do whatever God's put on my heart. And then I'll judge whether or not you're doing what you're supposed to be doing because God's put something on your heart. And are you with me? There's these weird kinds of individualistic attitudes that we bring to Jesus and to Christianity and to church here in the West. So one of the things that happens when we do that is we start to say that what Jesus did on the cross was for individual people to be saved. Okay, but now what are we saved from? There's always two great questions when you talk about salvation. You're saved from something and you're saved to something, right? So what are we saved from? Well, if it's an individual game and this whole thing is just about my own personal faith journey and my own personal walk with Jesus, then you're saved from your bad things that you do. You're saved from your sins, right? That's what we've always been taught on Easter, right? For those of us who come to church once or twice a year, we are beaten down as much as possible about how horrible our lives are without Jesus, right? And that Jesus has come to save you from your horrible sins. The only problem is, have you ever heard a testimony? Anyone ever heard a testimony where somebody got up and gave a testimony? I don't know about you, but like 80% of testimonies I ever heard, it sounded a whole lot better before the Jesus came in. No one? No one else? Like, I lived fast, man, and I made money and it was great, and then I met Jesus. It's like, I don't want to know if I want to meet Jesus, but it's all these weird kinds of individualized sense. I've always struggled with I know a lot of people who aren't Christian that they live really, really good lives. They're moral, they're ethical, they're loving, they're giving, they're generous. Right? And then you're like, you got to tell them, you got to convince them to get saved. You got to convince them that their sins, their individual sins, are so bad, but that Jesus loved you so much that he came and he died just for you. Right? So that's the story. So you're saved from your sins and you're saved to heaven. Right? Now, I got a problem with that because what happens between the time that you get saved and the time that you go to heaven? Well, you've already arrived, right? You've already arrived. You're already at the destination point. The journey's over for you. I'm saved. I was once lost, but now I'm saved. I was blind. Come on. But now I see. I was lost, but now I'm found. Well, what if you get saved at 12? What if you get saved at 13? What if you get saved at 7? What if you get saved at 28? What if you get saved at 42? And you don't die till you're 79 or 83 or 96? What happens if you've already attained the destination? You're saved. Well, what happens is we pretty much just wait for heaven, don't we? In Christianity, in the Western world, we're just all praying to God, God, just come sooner. We just want to get out of this dirty, rotten, horrible hellhole. And it's such a horrible way to talk to the one who created this place and who actually loves it and is always trying to get here. Thy kingdom come and thy will be done. Where? On as it is in heaven. God's trying to get here. We're trying to get there. Somewhere there's a misunderstanding and a miscommunication. So if salvation is not individual, that's not the point. And if salvation is not just to get you to heaven, that's not the point. Then what's happening? Why is Easter so important? Why is the resurrection so important? And I just jotted this down. It's not that death loses. We sing the songs, don't we? Death has been overcome. Though death, where's your sting? We get this right out of scripture. We don't have to die a spiritual death anymore, right? We get to go to heaven when we die. This is so we just run it right back through the individual lenses, and we say, well, death has been defeated. Spiritual death is defeated. Thank God. God saved me, and now I get to go to heaven when I die because death has been. Well, what if it's not? What if the story of the resurrection is not that death got defeated, but the empire got defeated? I've got one with me. Now, for the rest of you, let's keep on going, all right? You're like, God, we should have wooed that. We should have wooed it. We should have amened at that moment. He's going to keep on going. What if it's not that the point of resurrection was not that death was defeated, but that Caesar was defeated, that the empire was defeated, that Rome didn't get the last word, but God did? Are you with me? See, now I got two. I'm coming after you. So, so what is happening if you read the Gospels, which means good news? It's the euangelion. It's the pronouncement of the good news of the King. What is happening with King Jesus is not just I think it absolutely castrates the gospel when you make it about an individual salvation. It takes away its power and its potency when we say, well, I get to get saved. No, God's doing more than that. Amen. You get to be a part of it. Thank God. But God's doing more than just saving individual people. He's saving the whole creation. God is coming to destroy Caesar and to destroy Pharaoh and to destroy Babylon and to destroy the empires of the world. Are you with me? Yes. See, Jesus was put to death. Man, we miss it here a lot. We like to blame the Jews, that the Jewish religion killed Jesus. No, the state killed Jesus. It was Rome that killed Jesus. And Pilate was crafty enough to learn how to use the temple leaders that were in bed with Rome to work together to kill this insurrectionist that was rising up against the empire. And Jesus comes against the empire. He comes against everything that the empire does. Because why? Because the empire, Rome, the Caesar, the pharaohs of the world, they get big by abusing and oppressing almost everyone else. And Jesus comes in and says, it doesn't have to be this way. And he starts turning tables. Are you with me? And so Jesus' death was a death that was a state-sanctioned murder to kill the undesirables. Are you with me? To show a force to the rest of the empire. Don't you dare speak out against Caesar. Are you with me? This isn't about our individual sins that I got upset one day and I said a curse word on the freeway. If that's a sin, I'm the first in hell. Okay, I'm just right. Amen. Okay. It's not about getting frustrated and taking it out on your kids, even though that's bad. That's not. Jesus came to destroy the power of Caesar. Or this, we could say this way, any powers of empire that oppress. That's why he was such an enemy to this. He was scapegoated because there were a lot of people in the empire, in Rome, that started to listen to Jesus. Are you with me? And so, so what if this resurrection then was not about that Jesus resurrected so he can make a mansion and we could live with him in the sky someday? What if it's about saying to the empire, you don't have the last word? Caesar doesn't get the last word. Are you with me? Man. See, that changes the whole scope of what is happening now. The energy rises because now we're not talking about, well, I cheated on my taxes this year, but I'm going to say a prayer and then I get to go to heaven when I die. It's so silly to me because I feel like when God created everything, that God's whole movement was, I'm going to constantly be in touch and I'm going to constantly redeem and I'm going to constantly reconcile all of this. Are you with me? And so the conquering is not conquering of death, it's conquering of the state of the empire. And Jesus is still doing that. The second thing I want to say really quickly is this. It's not that Easter happened and the disciples see a resurrected Jesus at some point because they see him at different points. But it's not that the disciples witnessed a resurrected Jesus and then told the story. Let's go back, and I want to get really specific with this because it's that women were the first to see it. And that women were the first to tell it. Are you with me? Now, I'm so sick of this. I love this pink coat, but I'm sick of it. I am too fat to wear that. This doesn't look any better, so just hang with me. Just close your eyes and listen. All right, so if Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection is about destroying the empire and saying, Caesar, you don't get the last word, then doesn't it make sense that Jesus would use very, very marginalized people, women, to be the first to witness and to bear witness to this resurrection and defeat of Rome? Are you with me? So it makes sense to me that in every gospel story, by the way, it's the women that are there first. It's the women that show up. It's the women that stayed. It's the women that worked. It's the women who witnessed, and it's the women who told. It is this kingdom is a kingdom built on marginalized people being raised up, not a kingdom that is being built on the backs of enslaved and marginalized people to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. But it is saying, no, we are actually going to say it's bad news to the elite that are oppressing, and it's good news to those who've been oppressed. Are you with me? I baited you a little bit with my own clap, didn't I? I felt it right when I did it. But that was a moment. You should have gotten it anyways. It was really good. It makes sense that this Jesus would use the marginalized and the oppressed to be the first to see it. And it also makes sense in the patriarchy that the men listen to it. And what do? It seems as idle tales. How frustrating is that verse? Anyone? If I were a marginalized person who doesn't really get, to this day, women still make less on the dollar for a man that does the exact same job. People of color make even less. LGBTQ people are always constantly riding that fence of, do I say, how out can I be? Are you with me? Come on. We understand marginalized, oppressed people. We're still doing it in this empire. But for those of you who, I look a whole lot like the dominating class, right? I get it. I get it. I have my privilege. I understand that. Yeah. Yeah. But I think that I've got to think that my friends that I know that are women, that are LGBTQ plus, that are people of color, I've heard enough stories and I read enough books to know it's got to feel like the most frustrating moment to be put at a table only because you're a token and you're not really listened to. And how many times have my friends in this room or who are watching that are marginalized and oppressed and pushed down by the government in our society and our culture, how many times have you felt like that verse applied to you, but to them it felt like idle tales? Like you were listened to, but it was kind of out of just an obligation. I've got to listen to this person. They don't really speak for the company. They don't really speak for the church. They don't really speak for this culture. Are you with me? And we're still doing it today. And so what if the resurrection and the kingdom of Jesus is not just about my individual, that I get to go to heaven when I die, but what if it's about raising up marginalized and oppressed people and saying, you are the bedrock of this movement. You are the voice. Amen? I think at Simplicity and in my life and in our lives, we have a lot to learn from Black theologians and Latin theologians and queer theologians and womanist theologians and feminist theologians. Are you with me? We need to open up. We got to quit, like one of my professors says, we got to quit reading theologians that are just pale, male, and stale. You like that? So we broaden and open our eyes to those, because guess what? When you read scripture through, you're coming from a marginalized, oppressed group. This is just my reckon. I reckon that those people get it way easier. They get the gospel, they get Jesus, they get the movement easier than those of us who have a lot of privilege. So I think it would do us good to start listening and broadening our approach, because what if what Jesus did in these gospels by letting women be the first to witness and women the first to tell, what if that means something? What if it means everything? Amen? The third reflection I have about this is this idea. In most kind of epic biographies that were written back in the Greco-Roman times, around the time of Jesus, we have these great leaders, these great, many times Caesars. We have these great, kind of mythical people that they write these stories about, and they almost become like gods, right? They become these incredible people that have these stories, and many of them have these stories of all these triumphs and how they went against the tide and how they brought people together and all of these different things. And then in lots of them, there are stories of death But there's also some resurrection stories in there, or there's stories of just people that there's no death. It just is like the legend just kind of continues and it just builds. And that person that you're reading that story, that biography about is someone to be idolized. And it's like this really incredible story of great heroics, someone who's brave. It's almost always a man. And we should kind of emulate, but it kind of dissolves on itself to really just kind of, you look at that person and that person is a great person, and that's about it. What's interesting about these biographies that we find in the Gospels of our Holy Scripture is the story of Jesus, which is this kind of story of this man who rises out of nowhere and has this incredible call of God and is used by God and heals people and raises people from the dead and walks on the water, right? Feeds the 5,000, does all these incredible things, goes up against Rome, right? Challenges the status quo of the world and of religion and all the things that were there. And then he resurrects. And it seems like resurrection would be a great place to end the story, doesn't it? Like Jesus wins. That's the story. So we worship Jesus because Jesus won, and that's the culmination, that's the climax, that's everything. That's the perfect ending. Jesus raised, that's the credits roll, right? The problem with it in the Bible is that the writers, maybe save Mark, the Gospel of Mark, all of the writers keep on going. And they keep on they say things like where Jesus says, wait for me and I will give you power from on high and you will go to the uttermost ends of the earth. And in Matthew, he has saying this stuff like now go out into all the nations and make disciples, create a family, make this thing bigger, find other people like you, right? And keep loving and keep doing what I'm doing. And it's weird because it's like the story seems like it would have ended at resurrection. But what's so beautiful about even in the story of Jesus, Jesus says, we're not going to make this story just about me. This story is about us. And the story is still being written. I hate that cliche, but it really is. The story is still being written. The story is still going on 2,000 years later. Why? Because we don't just worship a Jesus who is a hero. We worship a Jesus who said, now that I have done this, now you go and do likewise. Well, what is that, Jesus? It's love your neighbor as yourself. Well, but who is my neighbor? Your neighbor is everyone. Even and especially even those who you have struggles with. Those who you've been taught are outside. Those who you've been taught to avoid, especially those. Are you with me? So now this isn't a story just about Jesus. It's a story about the Jesus way. And now we get to decide how we are going to enter into that story. Isn't that beautiful? It might not be. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe some of you are like, I hate this church. And I just wanted to hear my Easter sermon about how Jesus died for my sins and I get to go to heaven. And what is this bull that I'm having? Like, we're fighting empires now? What the heck? Yes. The Jesus way is to fight empires. Amen? Why? Okay, I'll tell you why. Let's take it down to the nitty-gritty. When empires invade land that's not theirs and says it's theirs, and they kill all the people who are already there, is that the Jesus way? No. Well, you might not know exactly what story I'm talking about because you might be going through your mind going, Well, there's a lot of empires, a lot of nations have done that. You're right. But we're right now. Well, let me just say, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say the next thing. Right now, we're on land that our empire gave to native people, and then we took it back. That's the truth of what we're doing. So we have to fight that. And our state, exactly, our state's trying to take even more. Now, but let's, because a lot of us get antsy when we talk about America. It's like, that's like, ooh, okay, but okay, hold on, listen. I'm serious, listen. Russia's doing it right now. And all of us are against that, right? Like, it's like back, when you step back 1,000 feet, you're like, that's just wrong. Okay, now step back even further, and you're going to start to figure out, ooh, oops. But let's just stay with Russia. Empires are still doing what empires do. Please hear this. So resurrection people have to keep doing what Jesus was doing. We got to flip some tables, and we got to say no more. And we got to say the people who are the least of these are actually the first. Are you with me? Yes. And we are the people who bring resurrection into this world. Amen? So may we today enter into the story of resurrection. May we be people who follow the way of Jesus. May we be people who are like Jesus. And may we turn some tables and destroy some empires. Happy Easter. Grace and peace.
I'm going to give you a quick choose your own adventure communion meditation really quick this morning. So I can either go the direction of telling you a short, morbid story, or I can go the direction of giving you a couple of free verse, small little poem I haven't written yet. So who wants the story? Say yes. Yes. Okay, who wants the poem? Say yeah. Okay. Okay, so here we go. We just went through the season of Lent, right? Lent brought us to this moment where we're supposed to be confronting the reality of our mortality, our humanity, this breathing, bloated body, me, on display for you to see the fullness of my frailty. Are we more than mere mortality? Maybe divinity wasn't so far away for us to see. Maybe the chasm was not as far as wide as we were led to believe. If the incarnation was real, then God put on flesh and was embodied when we walked among us. We in this life don't get the luxury of just confronting death once, and then that's the end. Throughout our entire lives, we confront death over and over again. Today, we're celebrating not just this disembodied afterlife, pie in the sky when you die by and by, life after death. There's a lot of churches around the country, around the world today that are just talking about the resurrection as the gateway to heaven, right? As the gateway into life after death. Well, I don't know much about life after death. I don't know much about it, and I'm really skeptical of those who say they do. What I do know is about life before death, and I think the resurrection life of Easter has a lot to say about that. Because as we face the little deaths that we experience together in life, the moments of grief, the moments of loss, the moments of lament as we go through life, I think this resurrection life shows us how to embrace those moments in a way that is like Jesus instead of a way that is like the oppressor. So, as we prepare our minds to go into this meal, which remembers the death of Jesus, and not just remembers it, but actually identifies with the death of Jesus in some way, we're confronted with two ways of living, like Israel was saying. We're confronted with the empirical way that is violent, that is oppressive. And we're confronted with the God figure, who is not the one pouring down vengeance on the cross. The God figure is the one who steps into the place of the victim and is showing love in the place of oppression. So when Jesus says that if you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have true life in you, we are taking this meal to remember the type of life we too want to live in this world. As we confront death on a regular basis, as we confront grief and oppression from the forces around us, and as we confront it within ourselves, we are remembering that the death of Jesus was a different way. We're taking the bread that represents Jesus' body, an embodied Lord. We're taking the blood, which remembers Jesus' blood, which was shed as a victim on the cross. We're here today to remember that death, and that it is not the end of the story, but that those who would take up their crosses and follow Jesus will always be the ones standing against oppressors and on behalf of the victims, standing against the violence, even the violence inherent in our systems, on behalf of those who have been oppressed. So, we remember our Lord, who stands in the place of victims, and we make that life the type of life we choose to follow today.